It's late at night and you're having a pleasant dream. Maybe you're reliving one of your favorite memories. Or you're having that dream where you're a flying superhero again, saving the world from destruction. Perhaps you're a knight in shining armor fighting off a fire-breathing dragon. But not for the hand of a helpless maiden, because this is the 21st century, and maidens are more than capable of saving themselves. Suddenly though, your pleasant little dream escape starts to turn dark. You get a growing feeling of dread and foreboding. Your nice fantasy slowly turns into a nightmare. You wake up with a gasp, happy to flee from the dark dream, but realize you've woken into a real-life horror. You can't move, you can barely breathe, and no matter how hard you try, your limbs refuse to respond to your commands. You lie in bed, panting for breath, completely paralyzed, and there in the darkness of your room, you swear that you can see a vague figure. It seems to be watching you, smiling even. And then in a flash, it's gone and you can move your body again. You tear out of bed and throw the lights on, but you're all alone in your room without another person in sight. It's estimated that about 15% of the population has had an experience like the one we just described. And if you're one of the lucky ones who hasn't, your time may be coming. For millennia, this phenomenon, now called sleep paralysis, has been associated with one particular evil being. A female demon ripped straight from the pages of the world's most ancient texts, and today known as the Night Hag. According to science, this phenomenon is not an evil demon visiting you and poisoning your dreams or trying to kill you. Sleep paralysis is a purely natural phenomenon that happens when you wake up but your brain hasn't fully alerted the rest of your body that it's time to wake up. If you've ever watched someone else sleep, then you're kind of a creeper. Just kidding. But if you've seen someone jerk around in their sleep, or perhaps watched a dog kick and paw and whimper as they dream of chasing squirrels, then you're well aware that sometimes our body responds to what the brain is pretending we're doing in our dreams. Scientists aren't quite sure why we dream in the first place, and the fact that less intelligent animals such as dogs and cats do it mean that it isn't a simple byproduct of our greater intellectual capacity and ability to imagine. Some believe that dreaming is the brain's safe way of working through troubling memories, or to give itself a break from the stresses of real life. Others believe that dreaming is the way that the brain processes information and helps it to learn from mistakes or develop new strategies to past problems. Others yet believe that dreams are largely meaningless or are a random mixture of memories and imagination with no discernible purpose, just something the brain does while in standby mode. What we do know, though, is that in order to protect you while dreaming, the brain automatically paralyzes your body. That's so when you're thrashing around in your dreams fighting off a grizzly bear with your bare fists, you don't start throwing haymakers in the real world and maybe break your hand on the wall. Have a particularly vivid dream of running a marathon, and your body might start running in real life, straight off a cliff or into a predator. Some people believe that the act of sleepwalking is actually the brain failing to fully do its job properly and shut the body down. It's clear that this sleep paralysis is pretty important for our safety and the safety of anyone sleeping next to us. Waking up in the midst of sleep paralysis, however, can be a traumatic and terrifying experience. The brain has accidentally forgotten to throw the on switch to the other parts of your body, and so when you try to move, you're unable to. Because you have so little control of your body, your breathing feels shallow and labored, and this gives the impression of a great force sitting on your chest. Stuck in a waking state where the brain is still partially dreaming, people have even described auditory and visual hallucinations that appeared completely real to them. In fact, some people believe that sleep paralysis perfectly describes the alien abduction phenomenon. That's science's answer, at least, and given the fact that it's 2019 and we still don't have flying cars, are you really gonna trust science? Of course not. Before the sleep paralysis theory, this phenomenon was directly attributed to the legendary Night Hag, a demonic being who would visit men and women and sit on their chests, infecting them with terrible dreams and draining their life force. What's startling is that the Night Hag is present in every single culture on Earth, and the various qualities attributed to her are shockingly similar. She's often described as a female figure, some claiming that she's a demon and others that she's a ghost, and she pins her victims down and steals their breath. The Night Hag seems to have existed for as long as humanity has been around, and she's mentioned in the world's most ancient texts. She's generally believed to be Lilith, the original wife to Adam, who did not wish to be his second and left the Garden of Eden. Others believe that Lilith was never human in the first place and was in fact a demoness who preys on men and women alike. Whatever her real origin, she appears in the Bible, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and even the Dead Sea Scrolls. She's also featured prominently in the mystical Jewish tradition of Kabbalah, and men all across the ancient world were warned to be wary of her presence. Not just men though, as the vengeful Lilith would often seek out pregnant women and newborn children and try to kill them in their sleep. In some traditions, Lilith is even described as having breasts full of poison instead of milk, which she feeds to newborn infants. The name Lilith is believed to be a derivative of the ancient Sumerian word for Lilitu, which were female demons and wind spirits. Beautiful and seductive, men were nevertheless warned to keep their distance from these temptresses, as they would often attempt to reproduce with men and then kill them shortly after. Able to bear children with either human or animals, the Night Hag prefers to reproduce with men and disguise herself as a human to give the child away for adoption, returning later to transform its daughters into Night Hags once they've reached puberty. In the Jewish Zohar, which is the foundation for the mystical tradition of Kabbalah, Lilith the Night Hag is mentioned a whopping 27 times. These depictions support the idea that she was Adam's first wife, but refused to see herself as subservient to Adam and rebelled against God by showing him great disrespect. Saddened by Lilith, God cast her out of the Garden of Eden and then formed a new woman for Adam directly from his rib, as Lilith had been made from the same dust as Adam had originally. Given the traditional view of these ancient cultures which held women in very low regard, it's no surprise that Lilith's refusal to be subservient forever to a man was seen as evil. Christianity doesn't believe Lilith was the first wife of Adam though, and certainly doesn't believe that she was thrown out of Eden for refusing to be subservient to Adam. In fact, in the New Testament, Jesus regularly treated women as equals in ways that modern audiences don't realize would have been shocking and even alarming for the contemporaries of the authors who penned the books of the Bible. This indication of equality from the Son of God indicates that the Bible's Lilith couldn't possibly have been the first wife of Adam, and the creation of a God who clearly didn't see a difference between man and woman. Thus, the brief mention of Lilith in the Old Testament is likely a reference to Lilith being a demon, and though she was not well described in the text, she would not have needed to be, as every ancient reader of the Old Testament would have immediately recognized the Lilith figure. One of the first documented mentions of Lilith, though, comes from the Epic of Gilgamesh, written around 2000 BC. This epic was the world's first known superhero story and tells the story of a mighty warrior named Gilgamesh, who performed many heroic deeds. In one part of the story, the hero helps the goddess of love and war cut down a tree in order to fashion a throne for herself. But as the wood is split open, they discover it's been inhabited by a trio of evil spirits: the serpent, the zoo bird, and the demoness Lilith herself. In an epic battle, Gilgamesh defeats the serpent and zoo bird, but only manages to force Lilith to flee into the desert, unable to overcome her. Sometime around 400 BC, Lilith once more appears in a major historical work, this time the famed Dead Sea Scrolls. These manuscripts were discovered in sealed-up caves along the Jordan River and predate many books of the Bible. Here, Lilith once more makes an appearance in a hymn, which is believed to be used for demonic exorcism. In this hymn, the reciter attempts to purge the victim of demonic corruption, naming Lilith by her name. The Talmud, one of the world's most ancient religious texts and written between the 6th and 3rd century BC, also mentions Lilith. Here she appears as a long-haired demon with wings who could seduce men and have sex with them in their sleep, often undetected. Ancient religious figures even went so far as to warn that men should not sleep alone so that Lilith would not visit and possibly slay them in their sleep. Leaving her mark across the ancient world, Lilith also appears in the form of countless charms and trinkets, all meant to ward off her nighttime attacks. A limestone plaque dating back to the 8th century BC is translated to read, "O you who fly in the darkened rooms, be off with you this instant, Lilith, thief and breaker of bones." These types of charms would often hang in the rooms of houses of pregnant women or newborn children, which were believed to be Lilith's favorite prey. Because she was seen as a sneaky predator, it was believed that if Lilith found the charm, she would flee the house, knowing that she'd been identified and possibly be discovered by its inhabitants. To this day, people claim that they're visited by nighttime demons, and despite modern explanations for sleep paralysis, some are not so satisfied that this phenomenon is purely natural. Many people still believe that succubus, female demons which prey on sleeping men, and incubus, male demons who do the same to women, are a very real phenomenon. Famously, a 1980s horror film called The Entity tells the allegedly true story of a woman who was prey to an incubus, a male night hag. Doris Bither was a single mother living in Culver City, California in 1978. She moved into a house but was warned by a Mexican neighbor that the house was evil and she should stay away from it. Plagued by personal problems, Doris experimented with a Ouija board and often used drugs and alcohol while trying to communicate with spirits. Is the Night Hag a real phenomenon, or is Lilith and her coterie of demons nothing more than our overactive, fearful imagination? Until science can definitely disprove the existence of paranormal forces, we'll leave it up to you to decide. Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis? Do you think the Night Hag story is nothing more than the sleep paralysis phenomenon? Let us know in the comments, and as usual, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more great content.